In this lesson, we'll be looking at basic angle facts. So in this lesson, I'll be just giving you the rules, and in the next lesson, I'll solve some problems for you. So let's look at some basic angle rules. And in this, I'm going to include straight line and rules involving all the straight lines as well. So let's look at the first rule. The first rule that we are going to look at is angles on a straight line. So angles on a straight line always add up to 180 degrees. So which means so our first rule is angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees. Now you need to remember these rules, because when you are going to solve your problems, if you do not write the reasons, you will not be getting the mark, because the assessment that you're going to do is geometric reasoning. So you have to give reason for each and every step. All right, let's see how we can use it. So if in this case I've given you one angle, so what we said here is angles on a straight line add to 180 degree, which means A should be 180 minus 120, which means your angle A is 60 degrees. Now this is our first rule. Let's look at the second rule. The second rule is involving a point. So what happens if you start from this point and you take a full circle and come back to that point again, which means you have taken a full complete round, which means angle at a point is 360 degrees. So how do we use it? So in this case, say I give you the measurement of these two angles. Say this is, let's just say that this is 150 degrees. This angle here is A, and this time let's just make it as X, and say this angle here is 120. So the rule that we have for a point is this: angle or angles at a point is or add up to or is 360 degrees. Now if you want to write the short form of that, you can write it like this: angles at a point is 360 degrees. This is our second rule. Let's use it. So to find X, you will go 360 degrees minus 120 plus 150, which will give you 360 minus 270, and when you minus it, it will give you 90 degrees. Now remember, this is the shape, or the examples that I'm taking are not drawn to scale. All right, so in this case X is 90, and so far we have looked at two rules. Let's look at the third rule here. Third rule that we have is involving line that cross at a point. So they are called, there's a special name for that. So these are like a line that makes, and you can clearly see that X here, and they make a special angle, and we call them as vertically opposite angles. So the rule says here that the vertically opposite angles are equal. So this is our third rule, that the vertically opposite angles are equal. So how do we use it? So in this case, if I have to find X, and I know the other angle is 40, which means X should be 40 degrees. And to write the short form of this rule, you can write it as vertically opposite angles are equal. You will not get marked down for that. Now this is our third rule. Now moving on to the next rule. Now I'm telling you again, we need to remember all these rules, because whenever you're going to solve a problem, you should be able to give the reason of your finding the measurement of the angle. So the fourth rule that we are going to look at is angles in a triangle. Say x, and this one is say 10, let's just make it as 70, and say if this angle is given to you as 60. So the rule that we use for triangle, in a triangle there are 3 angles and they always add up to 180 degrees. And we have done this last year, so we are just reviewing our rules here. So angles in a triangle add to 180 degrees. So we are not looking at the proofs here. So we are just going through and reviewing our rules. So which means, how am I going to use it? So if I have to find x, I'll go 180 minus 70 plus 60. I'll add the angles and take away those angles from 180. So which means my x will be 50 degrees. And the reason is angles in a triangle add to 180. Now to write the short form, you can go angles in a triangle add to 180 degrees. Now looking at the next rule for triangle. Now so far we have looked at the triangle and we have looked at 4 rules. Now let's look at the rule for a triangle where the 2 sides are equal, and there is a special name for that triangle. You know that's called isosceles triangle. Now this is an isosceles triangle because the 2 sides are equal. These lines means the lines that I've shown, they are equal. So the next rule that we have here is for an isosceles triangle. So I'll write what isosceles triangle is. Isosceles triangle has 2 equal sides. So that means the measurement should be equal. So what is the rule? The rule is base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal. Now to write the short form, we can just write it as base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal. Now this is the short form for the rule. So how will I find x in this case? It's pretty straightforward. So x should be 70 degrees because the base angles are equal. Now this is the second property of your angles using your triangle. Let's look at the 6th one. The 6th one is exterior and involving exterior and interior angles. So the angles that is outside of the triangle, they have a special name and we call them as exterior angles. The angles that are inside are called the interior angles. So the rules here is, if I have to find that exterior angle and I know the interior angles, say, so the rule is that the exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of interior opposite angles. So we can write in short as EXT, exterior angles equal to the sum of interior opposite angles. So this is the short form. Most probably you might not need to use it, because you can use angles on a straight line rule to find, you can find this missing angle using angles in a triangle, and then you can use angles on a straight line to find x, but that will take 2 steps. But if you want to solve this in 1 straight step, so you can just go x equals 60 plus 70 using our exterior angle rule, which means x should be 130 degrees. Now let's look at, you can stop the video and then you can take down notes, and that will help you. And let's look at the 7th example here. So in this triangle, I've put all the lines here, which means this is an equilateral triangle. So equilateral triangle has all sides equal. Equilateral triangle has all sides equal. And what it means is that all the angles will be equal to, which means if I divide 180 by 3, it will be 60, which means measure of each angles of an equilateral triangle is 60. So that's the next property. Angles in an equilateral triangle is 60 degrees. So that's our next rule. Let's look at the last rule, and then I'll make another video on parallel lines. And the last rule involves quadrilateral. So quadrilateral is a shape which has 4 sides and 4 angles. So the rule for the quadrilateral is that all of these angles will add up to, so angles in a quadrilateral, they will add up to 360 degree. So angles in a quadrilateral add to 360 degrees. So in this case, how do I use it? So to find x, you will go 360 minus 50 plus 60 plus 100. You will add all of these and you will find the answer. So in this case, it will be 60 plus 50 is 110. So it means 210, which means your x is 150 degrees. And this is how you find missing angles using quadrilateral property. So in the next lesson, we'll be looking at parallel lines.